So, I'm back. This is part 2 of the Diorama prop tutorial, Distressed Metal Signs for Scale Action Figures. So, the other one cut off abruptly because my memory stick got full. It's an old camera, and it doesn't have compression technology built in, so yeah, it's like a 1 gigabyte used up. So went back to my newer camera, which doesn't seem to have the quality of video of the others, but we'll see. Anyway, part 2, I was talking about optional tools. Like I said, I was showing you the metal punch, which you can use to make the holes in the various signs. Here's an example here of the holes, and here's also where the skewer comes in, because use the blackened skewer to enlarge the holes and also give it a little carbonization to make it look realistic. Of course, this is not a sign. This would be a bare metal application. Get the point. Okay, so anyway, other optional equipment is a micrometer. Here I got one from my father-in-law. He was a doctor. He got a lot of stuff from medical conventions, and this of course allows you to measure, especially when you're trying to duplicate a sign. This example here was taken from a Gotham City Batman Hush storyline cover. I think it was actually the graphic novel. So anyway, you can measure it and write it down. I always use a pencil because you can quit while you're ahead. In other words, you can erase. Erasing is big because nobody's perfect. So, and I always measure in millimeters because it's easier trying to figure out the equivalent in inches. You can just use that on your printer for sizing. I use also a magnifying glass because my close-up vision is bad and I need new reading glasses. So anyway, what else might you use? I already mentioned the different templates you can make, just so everything is square when you're not doing something like this where it's exaggerated, taken from a comic book panel. And then graphic sources, internet searches, Google images, actual comic books you can scan on your scanner. I have various clip art from the 60s and 70s because I had an executive secretary at the time who had her own printing business, and also this place I live right now, the former garage, or the garage, was turned into a print shop, so there was a lot of stuff left over. I also have extensive files over the years of what I've found myself and printed out on the internet and scanning and so on. I got literally drawers full, and most of my stuff is inside. I might have some outside graphics, but I do mostly interior stuff. And if I do outside one, it's usually distressed newspapers, usually Gotham, since I'm kind of Bat family centric, Gotham City centric. One other optional thing is the sidekick. While you're working, Batman is always good because he just stands in the dark and grunts. Bat mites, a little problematic. With Batman, you're pretty much assured of success since he's all about the contingencies ahead of time. Whereas with Batmite, even though he has good intentions, things are going to go awry. So I usually have bat Mike because that's usually how things go for me. But you pick your own favorite action figure. And then let's get to the actual work. So step one would be get the graphics, whatever you're going to use. Like I said, here's some examples from my scanner. 2 different sizes. This was taken from the internet and modified in my equivalent of Photoshop for Linux, which is called GIMP. And again, it depends on what scale you're working with. You need to take a figure and have him hold an open newspaper if that's what you're going for. You want an open one, you want a folded up one, whatever. So let's look at this bag here from the old Curiosity shop in Seattle. Here's an example where I scanned that. It didn't come out right because I didn't notice it was on JPEG. And so I learned something because I'm working with a new printer and a new scanner program. Anyway, you scan it, and when you scan it, make sure you put it on a page where you have plenty of white around it, because you're going to cut with a little edge around it. So when you put it on the metal tape, you want it, of course, to be smaller. So you make sure you get a clean cut around it. And what I like to do is use just some Scotch tape to cover up the adhesive, because when you're cutting, anytime you cut something that's got direct adhesive, you end up gumming up your blade, so you don't want to do that. And always check your blades, make sure there's nothing gumming them up. Use some Goo Gone or Goof Off to clean it off. Even WD-40 works. You gotta make sure it's very clean. I use alcohol swab afterwards. And so anyway, you get your graphics, and then you use your X-Acto to peel the backing, and then you put it on, like I said, with a border. Put the tape around, and you can cut it. And then you decide, of course, you have an option there. Are you going to make a very clean looking thing, like it just came off the truck, as it were, if it's a newspaper? Or are you going to go, why not, there's something inside the Curiosity shop bag. What is it? Oh, interesting. What is this? Oh, for the person who has everything. A belly button lint brush. Well, I certainly could use that. That's really cool. It's like 1/6 scale. I don't usually work in that scale, but that would work. Cool. I had a teacher who always insulted the students by saying, "Stop picking lint out of your belly button and get to work." Yeah, it wasn't a politically correct age. So anyway, step one, get the graphics. Step two, you got to make a decision. Are you going to make what scale? You got to size it. You got to print it. Compare it to an actual figure to see if it looks right. Whether you're going to do flat. If you do super flat, then just use cardstock, like a 60-pound cardstock, rather than just plain paper. You kind of experiment. If you want it curled, plain paper works. Use a better quality paper. Don't go cheap again on yourself. Now, if you're going to do an outdoor distressed one, you got to, again, say, is this going to be outdoor pristine or outdoor distressed? So, if it's outdoor distress, you might want to use a distressed template where the edges are not clean, like this one. It's just one I had in my wallet for many years. Pulled it out, since I never throw anything away. Um, here's a bunch of cards. This is from my #1, the Art Restorer, for Diorama supplies. I actually bought comic book short boxes. Anyway, once you decide what you're going for, either distressed, clean, indoor, outdoor, whether you're going to have bullet holes or not, then you mount it on your metal tape, and the next step is dulling the back. Now there are signs where it's completely shiny. I mean, bright aluminum, like this side. Get rid of the light here. So it's bright aluminum. But this is why your scratchy pad comes in. The dull part here is just rubbing it on the scratchy pad. And then you have more realistic looking back of your sign. So I prefer the dull look. Even though, unless it's distressed and bent up, you'll never see it. Now, what if you don't have any metal tape? Well, some alternatives is go into the sewing kit of Grandma and find this needle foil. It's kind of cool. Or if you have tea bags that are in packages, this is actually tea bag inner liner. I always get this from Victoria. See, if you open it up, it looks just like the back of an aluminum sign. Then remember, always Earl Grey hot, because we follow Captain Picard. By the way, I have sheet aluminum from an old circuit board company. I had a bunch of discards in a dumpster, so this is awesome. You can actually, with this, punch holes in. And when you use the roller on the back, you can make the holes smaller or bigger if you overdid it. Yeah. So, you do the scratch pad to get the dull, and then what else? Always make some place to put your signs, because they have a habit of disappearing. I actually was making one, and I had some, I didn't dull this one, I had some adhesive still on it, and I'm out working in the yard, and all of a sudden I find it sticking to my hoodie on the bottom. It's been stuck there for hours. But anyway, I always put it in something like this. I made my own little container with a heavy washer on the bottom so it doesn't move around. So here are some examples of various ones. So you decide, based on looking at real-world examples, do you want rounded corners, a distressed one with rounded corners, which is very common for outside signs like no parking and so on. You can also use credit cards. That's for a clean edge. Smaller signs, again, distressed edge. This one would be rounded corners. Rounded corners are, I think, more common. I'm not sure. But whatever you find, you got to make the decision. And then you have the examples. And then you need to weather it up. So black wash on the ends. Remember, gravity, things go from the top to the bottom. If you make your holes for the nails or whatever that's going to hold it on the sign, little tacks. I have a lot of rusted little nails that I use. Then you're going to have some rust marks coming down. You might want to wrinkle it. Here's an example of one I wrinkled. It's by crunching it up into a ball. And you notice how good this would look on a street, because paper gets wet and it wrinkles up. And and I always blacken the edges. And what I use is permanent marker, and you'll notice, if I can open this, I cut it so it's completely flat, so you can go along the edge instead of having the tapered thing. And as always, face your markers down so the ink stays in the tip. So in distressing it, you get your foam, you put whatever you're going to use. Here's an example. This was from a Thai food restaurant, takeaway, take-home container, or takeaway as they say in Canada. And here I put some bullet holes in it, and there you go. Bend it up, you bend up the corners. Here's a whole newspaper still in the different format. Like I grew up in Chicago, the Tribune was the big wide open one, and the Sun-Times was more like a book, so it's more like a book. This is of course taken from the story where they had the no man's land because of the earthquake and so on. And here's an example of an old weathered wanted sign. So basically look at real world examples on the internet using a Google search or some similar thing, and then try to duplicate that. So you can make smaller holes. Again, depends on the scale. I have this leather. This is meant to go through leather or large material. Again, always wear eye protection when you're doing anything where you're got something sharp and you're pounding it. So you just put on there. This works. This is pretty dense. This works. So there you go. That's basically how you make your distressed signs. And I could show you hundreds of examples, but I think you're bright enough to figure it out. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I think I've touched on the basics. But I want to also thank Al Figures for mentioning this technique and giving me credit, although I certainly didn't invent it. But this will give you everything you need to know. And like I said, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I will answer them. And again, no profanity, no cursing or slurs or anything like that. Just keep it family friendly. And remember, Spiral is always watching you. And I am out.